closing statements. We've got a timer to ensure fairness. The candidates can see it right there.
The order of questioning was determined by a coin toss. Mr. Sestak will give the first response, and so let's begin our questioning. So much of the discussion about jobs and the employment crisis in this country has focused on small business, and that's appropriate, but in Pennsylvania, big business has been the problem as well. Car assembly plants have shut down and defense contractors have pulled up stakes. Some of those jobs are lost, period. Some of those jobs have gone to other countries, and some of those jobs have gone to other states where the business climate is quote-unquote friendlier. So in Pennsylvania, you really have a three-headed monster. How do you bring jobs back to Pennsylvania?
Thanks everyone for the debate this evening, and Pat, thank you. It is still about small business. Pennsylvania has actually had half the growth of small businesses in the last 30 years as the nation's average. So Washington really has to start giving tax credits, like 15% to a small business for every new payroll job they create. That would create 5 million jobs in just 2 years. Zero capital gains tax for small businesses. You're right, corporations have gone overseas. My opponent, for example, voted that if a corporation shuts down its factory here in Pennsylvania, fires its employees, and then invests in a factory in China, and then cheap goods come in, often illegally subsidized by China, then no tax is given to the profit of that large corporation where jobs have gone overseas. In fact, he takes it another step. The corporation should have zero taxes. So that's the difference. Small business create 80% of all jobs. He believes it's about corporations and helping them create jobs elsewhere.
Well, I'm the candidate in this race that's actually created jobs. Started a small business from scratch with my brothers. We owned and operated some restaurants, and we employed hundreds of workers. And I can tell you the biggest factor that's preventing us from having job growth at large, medium, and small companies is this out-of-control agenda in Washington. Think about what we've been witnessing. Serial bailouts of failing companies, nationalizing whole industries, spending money on a scale I never imagined possible, corresponding deficits and debt. You throw in cap and trade, card check, government-run health care. This agenda is preventing us from having the kind of economic growth that we so badly need. Congressman Sestak, he'll talk a lot about accountability on the campaign trail, but doesn't seem to want to hold himself accountable. He voted for every item on that agenda, and his only criticism was that they didn't go far enough. This agenda, this overreach of government, is having a chilling effect on our ability to create jobs. I know. I've been there. I've started businesses and created jobs. We've got to get off this track.
Would you like a 30-second rebuttal, Mr. Sestak?
Yes. Let's set aside the fact that when you, Congressman Toomey, invested in a small business here in Pennsylvania, you were working in China for a Chinese billionaire and testified under oath a couple years later you never had hands-on operations of your small business that your brothers ran. But let's look at how you have no credibility or track record on creating jobs. During the Bush-Toomey era, 0 jobs were created as compared to the 8 years in the Clinton administration where I worked, 23 million jobs were created. That's the fact, and that is where we have to level with Pennsylvanians.
Mr. Toomey.
Well, it's almost amusing that Joe is willing to mischaracterize my small business. My brothers and I and the hundreds of people that I helped employ know very well that I was very actively involved in this business. That's why I understand the way the policies that Joe's advocating are killing jobs and the kind of policies that we need. Joe wants much higher taxes on businesses, on individuals, on labor, on all kinds of things that he's already voted for and advocated even further. We just disagree. I think we need to get spending under control, lower taxes, and create the kind of incentives so that we can get the job growth we badly need.
George, time's yours. First to Mr. Toomey.
Mr. Toomey, this question's for you. Sarah Palin has really stepped up her activity this year. Just yesterday, she put out a notice, an endorsement on Facebook asking Pennsylvania voters to get behind you. The Democratic Party put out a statement saying that shows that you have more in common with Republican extremists than the voters of Pennsylvania. Just a two-part question. What do you make of her role in this campaign, and do you think she's qualified to be president?
Well, George, you know, I'm very grateful for the support that I have from people all across the political spectrum, Republicans, Independents, Democrats. I welcome the endorsements that I've had from high-profile candidates and political figures and ordinary folks that I meet every day. Here's what I think is important. I think right now we're at an inflection point for our country. Joe Sestak and the other very liberal Democrats who have dominated the agenda in Washington have attempted to dramatically expand the size and the scope and the power and the cost of our government. My concern, and a lot of that concern is driven by the 3 kids that Chris and I have, our 10-year-old daughter, my 9-year-old son, and our little 5-month-old baby boy. I'm concerned about their future. And, whoever's endorsing me in this campaign, I'm grateful for, and I welcome all allies in this effort to get a government that's out of control, under control, so that we can have the prosperity that we need and we deserve.
Mr. Sestak.
Look, I know he won the very coveted award of an endorsement by Sarah Palin. But I have respect and I understand the anger of the Tea Party. And I appreciate their activism. What I'm most concerned about are those extreme candidates that are actually taking advantage of the extreme fringe of the Tea Party. There are those that are running with Congressman Toomey, Mr. Donald next door, for example, that want to do away with the 14th Amendment, that actually thinks there can be a state-established religion. But one of the most out-of-sorts ideas is Congressman Toomey's belief that corporations should have 0 taxes. 0. If Congressman Toomey is consistent on anything, it's that if it's a program for the people, he's against it. If it's a program for corporations, he's for it. It says above us in Constitution Hall, we the people, not we the corporations. That's the difference in this election.
Mr. Toomey.
Well, it's very clear. The person who's the extreme candidate that is so far out of touch with Pennsylvania is Joe Sestak. I mean, look at this agenda. Not only did he vote for every item on that agenda, all the bailouts, every single one, while many members of the Pennsylvania delegation, including Democrats, voted against elements, not Joe Sestak, he voted for all of the bailouts, and then introduced his own bill to create a new bailout. That stimulus bill, Joe might be the only person in the United States who thinks that should have been $1 trillion, as he has said, because $800 billion of money we didn't have wasn't enough. Joe voted for cap and trade, which would devastate our economy, and said it didn't go far enough. He voted for the health care bill, and in committee he voted for a version of the bill that would have allowed states to ban all private health insurance altogether. Joe, that's a very extreme agenda, and it's out of step with Pennsylvania.
Congressman Toomey, you know that's wrong, and that's not true. My daughter with brain cancer, if that bill had passed that way, would have lost her health insurance. You know I voted against that. But what we did say is health insurance agents, health insurance companies, that were actually defrauding the government of 20%, actually charging us more, we stopped that. Look, in the U.S. military, we don't breed liberals. We don't breed conservatives. When you're on the ground in Afghanistan, there's no liberals there. What is there is problem solvers. I went to Congress, I reminded my first job on a warship during the Vietnam War era, damage control officer. And that's what we had to do, is control the damage done by the policy of you and George Bush, Congressman.
Wendy Davis, your first question to Mr. Sestak.
Okay, turning to Social Security now.
Yes.
For a lot of Pennsylvanians, the dream of a secure retirement is becoming increasingly threatened. In fact, a lot of Pennsylvania seniors rely solely on Social Security as their income. What is your stance on privatizing Social Security?
Well, I'm so opposed to privatizing Social Security, like my opponent supports and has written in his book that we should do it. We have to preserve for our seniors Social Security. If it had been privatized in this this recession, this kind of depression, 20 million seniors would have moved into poverty. 2/3 of our seniors rely on Social Security for their retirement, or the majority of it. My opponent wants to take it and invest it to where he made his fortune, and I applaud your fortune on Wall Street. But he then wants to invest it there. What broker is going to come forward during a recession and say, hey, don't worry, I'll back it up? He wants to take the security out of Social Security. Then he says, maybe we'll only invest the youth there. That's what he says in his book. But the youth